Okay, so this video is one of three about measurement devices. The list was up in the 20s, and I didn't want to do them all at once. Didn't want to put you to sleep, at least yet. So I've got this column right here. We'll call that devices, and then I'll have a column called properties, and then we'll have a column for the units. Okay, so starting with accelerometer. What in the heck is an accelerometer? An accelerometer is a device that detects acceleration. In other words, a change in velocity. Not just a change in speed, but or a change in direction. So an accelerometer then measures the properties of position and time. So if you change your position over time, then an accelerometer will detect that. So there's our properties. Then what units? Well, position we measure in meters, and time we measure in seconds. It's not important to this quiz, but the unit of acceleration that we use in physics is meters per second squared, or meters per second per second. But once again, I don't care for this particular quiz. So meters and seconds, that is enough. What does an accelerometer look like? How about this? In the old days, accelerometers were like this. What is this? It's a couple of lead masses, and there's a spring right here. And if you just walk around with it, it says 0 Gs. Well, actually, it should say 1 G. And then if you ride a roller coaster and you feel mushed down into the seat, it might go up between 1 and 2 Gs. So that's an old school accelerometer. And nowadays, accelerometers come in your phones and other devices. They have the same sort of idea behind them, but they use a little tiny computer chip with eensy-weensy components inside. So that is accelerometer. Next, altimeter. So we use an altimeter. This one's kind of a weird one. An altimeter is something that you would use if you want to know how high up in the air you are, like you're jumping out of an airplane. So that measures height, which is a position in the y dimension. But really, what's going on inside an altimeter, unless it uses a nice fancy GPS, what's going on inside an altimeter is it's actually measuring pressure. So like an altimeter, what would just a second here. So here's a picture I found of somebody who's skydiving, and they've got this altimeter on their hand, and as they fall, it's measuring the pressure change. So as the pressure changes, they can tell, oh, okay, I'm getting this close to the ground, that close to the ground. Maybe I should pull my cord so that way I don't get splattered. So ooh, I lost my text there. Oh well. So anyway, an altimeter measures position, so we're going to say meters, but really that's not the big deal. Really, when I think of an altimeter, I'm thinking of pressure, and the units of pressure are something called pascals, or you might see them measured in bars, something like that. So that's altimeter. There's 2 down and 5 to go. No, wait, 6 to go. So next one, an ammeter. And it's very hard for me not to say amp meter, because in my head, well, you'll see in a second. So yeah, when I say ammeter, I almost always say it incorrectly. I almost always say amp meter. But anyway, an ammeter measures the property of current flow. And so it detects electrons moving through a wire, typically. And so the units are amps. And that's why in my head I almost always say it wrong. But it's an ammeter. What does an ammeter look like? They can be like a box that looks like this, or they could look like a fancy device, like maybe something like this. We call these multimeters. They do lots of things, but being an ammeter is one of their functions. Okay, so 3 down, 4 to go. No, wait, 5 to go. I'm not counting so well, but oh well. So let's see here. An anemometer. That one sounds really freaky. Let me highlight that. So an anemometer. An anemometer is really, it just measures the property of speed. And speed goes back to position and time. So an anemometer is basically just a speedometer for wind. And so the units are just meters and seconds. So what does an anemometer look like? Let me show you one. So here is, maybe you've seen these. Like if you pay close attention, some people have these in their yards. There's one not far from our school, but I see these things along I-75 down toward Detroit. And they even have handheld ones nowadays that can tell you the wind speed. So there's anemometer, 4 down, 4 to go. An audio frequency tuner. What in the heck is that? Well, in the old days, if you wanted to know if your piano was playing the right note, what you would do is you would get somebody who knew how to use this device called a tuning fork, and they would be able to tell you if your piano was playing the proper notes when you hit the right key. Well, nowadays, we actually use more sophisticated devices. Here's a microphone on a little electronic doohickey. But what's the big idea here? An audio frequency tuner is measuring the property of frequency. And frequency is a weird unit. It's called the hertz. Hz, that's an abbreviation for hertz. And that's the same thing as per second. So a tuning fork might have a frequency of, I don't know, 440 hertz. Or you could say 440 per second. That's how many times the little, on a tuning fork, that's how many times the tines go back and forth per second. That's pretty fast, huh? Okay, 5 down, 3 to go. A balance. What's a balance? Let me just show you the picture first. Let's see here, balance 1. So here's an old school balance. This mass on this side, you slide these masses and it will balance a mass you stick on here. So a balance measures the property of mass. I'll write that down in a second. But nowadays, a lot of them are digital. Okay? So a balance measures the property of mass, and the unit we use there is the kilogram. I guess you could say grams as well. A barometer, believe it or not, I actually kind of get to skip barometer. Why? Because barometer is the same thing pretty much as an altimeter. So for a barometer then, let's see here, I think I got a picture of one. These things measure air pressure. And if the pressure goes down, look at these numbers. As these numbers get smaller, 990, 980, 970, you're more likely to get rain. And as these numbers get higher, you're more likely to get sunny weather. High pressure air is usually associated with good weather. And right here, look at this one. This one has millimeters and millibars. But nowadays, we use pascals. So I guess I'm not going to skip barometer completely. Pascals is the unit. And it measures pressure. And then finally, caliper. Caliper measures the property of distance, one we've seen before here, and distance is measured in meters. And I found a web page where they're selling calipers. Let's see here. Here they are. I just Googled this. So calipers are these devices that pinch together and tell you how the size of something. So they're very precise. So calipers measure distance. That's in meters. I'm 8.5 minutes plus in. I think that's a good place to stop with this first video of 3 measurement devices.